Let's keep reading Horrible Histories, Cutthroat Celts. We're up to Saints Unalive. The Celts became such great Christians that they practically invented many of the great Christian traditions. It's said that John Cassian was a Celt born in Scythia, and he brought the first monasteries to Europe. He pinched the idea from the Egyptians, though. The main thing needed to be a saint is to have A, a very good life, B, a very messy death, and C, an incredible miracle happen. Some Celt saints managed all three. Saint Tailo. Saint Tailo, a 6th century Welsh saint, is buried at a place called Llandelo Fawr and in Penally and in Llandolf Cathedral. This is not very difficult if you're a saint. And no, they didn't chop him into 3 and share the bits out. In one night, his corpse became 3 bodies. Don't you wish you could do this? You could send one body to school, while one went to the seaside and the other stayed in bed and watched television. Saint Olcan. That's Olcan, not oil can. Olcan's father died before he was born. The shock killed his mother, who also died before he was born. She was buried and then Olcan was born. A passing nobleman heard baby Olcan crying, dug him up and saved his life. Don't try this at your local cemetery. Body snatching is a grave offence. Saint Ronan. Cornish monk Saint Ronan had a pretty rough life after he was dead. His body was loaded onto a wagon and the oxen pulling it were set free. Where the wagon stopped, Ronan would be buried. But as the cart trundled along, it was attacked by an angry Celt woman. People say Ronan had upset her because he took no notice when she tried to chat him up. Anyway, first she hit one of the oxen and knocked its horn off, and then she bit Ronan's corpse then she hit Ronan's corpse a mighty smack in the face. He was probably glad to get safely under the ground after that. Saint Monessa. This beautiful Irish princess was a non-Christian Celt, but then she heard St. Patrick preaching. She thought old Pat was wonderful and said, "Convert me to Christianity. I want to be baptized if it's the last thing I do." Patrick baptized her, and it was the last thing she did. She died from the happiness. Please note, if you die from happiness while reading this book, your money will not be refunded. Saint Ciaran. If you're a saint, probably Kieran maybe. If you're a saint, it is always handy if you can work miracles after you've died. Kieran managed it. It seemed that all the other saints in Ireland were praying that he'd die young. Kieran didn't let them down. He was only 33 when he died of the plague in AD 548. There were plagues even before the famous 1349 Black Death, and this one got him. Dying was a very popular thing for Kieran to do, and St. Columba cheered. But Columba took a chunk of turf from Kieran's grave and carried it with him everywhere. Years later, Columba was caught in a deadly whirlpool, threw the turf in the water, and the whirlpool went calm. Saint Mylor. Little Mylor was only 7 when his dad was murdered. The bishops persuaded the killer not to murder Mylor too. He didn't. Instead, he chopped off the boy's hand and foot. Oh, this is so gruesome, boys. Mylor hopped along to the blacksmith and had a metal hand and foot made. Miraculously, his flesh and blood hand grew back, but Mylor's guardian cut off his head next. This is horrible. The boy didn't have a head growing trick, or maybe the blacksmith didn't do heads and he died. The murderer picked up the head happily and dropped dead 3 days later. 6 dead funny facts. 1. The Celts didn't mind dying too much. After all, they believed that when you left this life, you woke up in the other world. The trouble is, you could also die in the other world. Then you are reborn into this world. Then you die and go to the other world, and then you're reborn, then you die. Once you've done this, you will know how a yo-yo feels. Is this world the other world's other world, or the other world of this world? The Celtic day began at nightfall and ended with a fading light. Similarly, the year began in November with the dying plants, and spring sprang to life in the spring. It made sense to them to see death as the start of your existence and life as its end. Well, it made sense to them, if not to you. This belief meant Celts would laugh at a funeral and cry at a birth. Christian Celts, even today, hold parties for the dead called wakes and enjoy a good laugh at a funeral. The doctor gave me 3 weeks to live. How nice! 4. The Celts buried the dead person with some of their favourite belongings from his life. Jewellery, weapons, clothes, and of course, food. Joints of pork seem to be the corpse's favourite food, though sometimes calf, sheep, and cattle bones have been found. Personally, I take a bag of crisps. What about you? I'm still a little peckish. They buried the very rich with a chariot, but the crafty Celts didn't waste a good chariot on a crumbling corpse. They usually buried a clapped-out chariot. Of course, the chariot needed a horse to pull it, so the cutthroat Celts buried a clapped-out horse along with it. Archaeologists can tell the state of the horse by the conditions of its teeth and bones. One wealthy Celt was buried with 40 litres of Italian wine. Just as well the Celts didn't have breath tests, or he'd be banned from driving the chariot before he even got to the afterlife. Do we have any wine left? Nope, we buried the lot. Looks like he'll be having more fun than us then. Okay. Weird war. The Celts were fierce fighters. Some of the stories about Celt warriors are reported by the Roman historians, so they are usually believed. Why is it that people always believe horrible historians? In fact, the Romans probably exaggerated a bit to make their own soldiers look better when they defeated the Celts. Tulane became temporarily insane in battle, going into warp spasm when he was so full of bloodlust that he couldn't tell friend from foe. This strange frenzy can still be observed on soccer pitches today. The early Celt warriors fought with no clothes on except perhaps a gold band around the neck called a torque. They didn't believe in wearing armour. The Celts knew their gods would decide if they were to die that day. All the armour in the world wouldn't protect them. The Romans were protected by armour and underpants. That's the illustration of the Roman with their armour and the Celt and the nudie going to battle. No, it's a fig leaf. They're covering his penis with a fig leaf. 3. The Celts were very bad losers. If they looked like losing, they killed themselves. This kind act saved their enemies the trouble. In one cheerful Roman statue, a Celtic warrior is shown plunging a sword into his chest with one hand while holding his dead wife in the other. He has already killed her to save her from capture. Hope she was grateful. I don't know what you're smiling at. You're next. The crafty Celts were great riders and invented a special saddle for fighting. They had no stirrups for their feet, so there had always been a danger of the riders falling off. The Celt saddle of the 2nd and 3rd centuries BC had 4 high bumps. Pommels is the posh word. They could be gripped with the legs. That left one hand free to guide the horse and the other to hold a weapon. In AD 52, an army of 50,000 Romans defeated 250,000 Celt Gauls, led by Vercingetorix. The trouble was the Celts ran wild in battle and fought as individuals. The Romans worked as a team and won. 6. The Celts liked fighting so much they didn't just fight against enemies, they fought against each other. They also had a bit of fun fighting for other people as far away as Egypt, Greece and Asia Minor.